the structural side of the house, we did a lot of training with live fire. We'd find a house that was going to be demolished, and we would actually do live fire and light the house on fire and take our crews in and teach them how to do an interior fire attack and those kinds of things. In the wildland community, we have prescribed fire that we can use for a tool, but it really is not quite the same because you're not having to make really quick decisions in that decision-making process. And how we look at safety today, as opposed, we used to tell people, go out there and don't get hurt, but we understand now that there's a lot more to that. One of the things that always concerned me as, like I said, I spent 40 plus years in the fire service, and probably 2/3 of that is either a first line supervisor, a chief officer, or a fire manager of some kind, in the incident command system. Always concerned about sending people out and putting them in harm's way, because that's what we did every day. We put people in harm's way. What could we do to mitigate where we put people? And that whole process and that whole thought process has come a long way also. As a division group supervisor on Jack Lee's Type 1 team, we took over the South Canyon incident the day after the fatalities. And a couple of days into that, as a division on Division Bravo, my job was to complete the line from the top of Storm King all the way down into Glenwood Springs. And part of that, we needed to put a couple of crews on top to tie in with the crews coming up from the bottom. So I took two crews that I was very familiar with. One was Fulton and the other was Horseshoe Meadow. So Horseshoe, Bob Bennett was the superintendent. Dan Klein was soup on Fulton. The three of us stood on a rock for a very long time that morning. After we flew up in the helicopter, we got off, stood on a rock, and what we used to say in the old days, we spit and whittle, talked about how we would approach this downhill line construction. All of the fire was basically out. We were going to be cold trailing. But we spent a lot of time because of the event that had occurred, a couple of days before that, and that whole concept of perception. What would people think if we did downhill line construction in that Gamble Oak again? But the situation was different. We only had one smoke that was anywhere close to the line, and we outlined a plan to do that, and we really did put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't just fly the crews up and just bail off the mountain. So that was, one of those watershed moments where you think about what you want to do next and how you communicate and how we talk about things and how we move forward. So, between Dan, Bob, and I, that's something that we shared about standing on that rock and taking a look and how would we accomplish this mission, or were we not going to accomplish it? That was way back before the turndown standards. But so that safety and putting people in harm's way, it's the whole attitude towards that has really changed.